In a quiet cafe, chaos erupted when a group of bullies targeted a towering black man, unaware he was a former Marine. Their taunts escalated, but what happened next left even the boldest in stunned silence. My response surprised even those who thought they'd seen it all, but let's start from the beginning. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon at Lou's Café, a cozy diner nestled on the corner of a bustling neighborhood. The smell of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air, mingling with the low hum of murmured conversations and the occasional clatter of plates. Gerald "Jerry" Thompson sat at the counter, his broad shoulders slightly hunched as he sipped a steaming cup of black coffee. At 6 feet 4 inches with a solid muscular frame, Jerry was a striking figure, his dark skin contrasting with the soft pastel hues of the cafe walls. His calm demeanor and composed posture gave him an air of quiet strength. In his early 40s, Jerry had seen more than his share of life's battles. A retired Marine, he had served in some of the toughest combat zones overseas, earning respect for his courage and discipline. Since leaving the military, he had become a mentor in the community, guiding troubled youth toward better paths. But today, he wanted nothing more than a moment of solitude. A well-worn copy of his favorite novel rested in his hands, its pages a welcome escape. As he turned a page, the bell above the door jingled, shattering the cafe's peaceful rhythm. A group of young white men in their early 20s sauntered in, their voices loud and brash, carrying a carefree arrogance. The leader of the group, Derek, wore a backward baseball cap and a smug grin that suggested trouble. His eyes landed on Jerry, and a smirk curled across his lips. He elbowed his friends and nodded toward the counter. The group claimed a booth nearby, their laughter sharp and intrusive. Snickers and whispers followed as they cast sideways glances at Jerry. Their intentions were clear, but Jerry, ever the picture of restraint, kept his focus on the pages of his book. He had faced worse than sneering strangers and knew the power of choosing battles wisely. Behind the counter, Lou, the elderly owner, wiped his hands nervously on a dish rag. He glanced toward the group, his expression tense but uncertain, as if debating whether to intervene. The cafe's atmosphere, once warm and inviting, began to bristle with unspoken tension. Yet Jerry remained still, a quiet island of composure amid the encroaching storm. The group's laughter, sharp and cutting, filled the cafe like a spreading stain, drowning out the usual clink of coffee cups and murmured conversations. Derek's voice rose above the noise, cocky and mocking. "Hey, big guy," he called, his tone heavy with derision. "You lost or something? This ain't no gym." At the counter, Jerry calmly placed his book down, his expression unreadable. His deep, steady voice carried just enough weight to be heard over the commotion. "Just enjoying my coffee," he replied. The calmness of his tone was a stark contrast to the growing tension. Derek's friends burst into hoots and snickers, their bravado swelling with Jerry's measured response. "Bet you could bench press the whole diner," one of them sneered, his words dripping with disdain. "What's a guy like you doing here anyway?" Jerry's fingers tightened ever so slightly around his coffee cup, the faintest crackle of knuckles betraying the control he held over himself. Behind the counter, Lou muttered a weak warning, his voice almost swallowed by the raucous laughter. "Take it easy, boys," he said, his eyes darting nervously to Jerry, then to the phone by the register. But Derek dismissed him with a wave, not even sparing the elderly owner a glance. "It's just a joke, old man," he said, grinning as he leaned closer to Jerry. His movements were casual but invasive. The mood in the cafe shifted, heavy and charged. Customers avoided the brewing confrontation, their eyes glued to their plates or phones. The air felt thick, like a storm waiting to break. Derek's smirk deepened as he hovered near Jerry's table. "What's wrong, you too good to talk to us?" he sneered. "Or maybe you're scared?" The Marine. Jerry stirred, the instincts forged in battle flickering to life. His dark eyes met Derek's, calm and unwavering. "Not scared," Jerry replied, his voice steady and deliberate. "Just don't see the point." His words, simple yet loaded, hung in the air, daring Derek to take the next step. The tension was palpable, crackling like static electricity, as everyone in the diner braced for what might come next. The confrontation reached a boiling point when one of Derek's friends, eager to impress, snatched Jerry's book off the counter and began flipping through it with exaggerated carelessness. "What's this?" he jeered, holding up the worn paperback as if it were an alien artifact. "Some kind of manual for tree hugging." Jerry's gaze shifted to the young man, his expression calm, but his voice low and commanding. "Put the book down." The tone of Jerry's words, with a sharp edge beneath the surface, sent a flicker of unease through the group. Derek, sensing the tension but unwilling to relinquish control, smirked and nudged his friend. "Relax, man. It's just a book." Jerry's eyes remained locked on the young man, unmoving and resolute. "Put it down," he said again, his tone steady, his presence unyielding. For a moment, the cafe seemed frozen, the air taut with silent electricity. Lou stepped out from behind the counter, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "That's enough, boys," he said, his voice trembling but firm. "Leave the man alone." Derek turned sharply, his smirk twisting into a sneer. "Why don't you stay out of it, old man?" he snapped, shoving Lou aside with a dismissive hand. Lou stumbled slightly, catching himself on the edge of the counter. That was it. In one swift, fluid motion, Jerry rose from his seat. His towering frame was a wall of quiet authority. The cafe seemed to shrink around him as he loomed over the group, his presence eclipsing their bravado. "Apologize," he said, his voice calm yet impossibly commanding. For a heartbeat, Derek's confidence wavered. His eyes flicked to his friends as if seeking reassurance, but the moment passed and his smirk returned, forced and brittle. "Or what?" he challenged, his voice shaking slightly. "You going to hit me?" The tension was suffocating, the silence deafening as every eye in the cafe fixed on Jerry. His response would determine whether the storm brewing in Lou's cafe would break or pass. What happened next was a masterclass in restraint. Jerry didn't raise a hand. He didn't need to. With calculated precision, he leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't want to know what I can do, but let me tell you what I will do if you don't apologize to Lou right now." The weight of his words, combined with his military-honed presence, sent a shiver through the group. Derek's bravado crumbled as he realized the man before him wasn't just another target for ridicule. "Hey, I'm sorry," Derek stammered, looking at Lou. His friends mumbled similar apologies, their earlier bravado now a distant memory. Jerry stepped back, his posture relaxing. "Good. Now leave." The group scrambled to their feet and hurried out, the bell above the door signaling their departure. The cafe fell silent. The tension dissipated like air from a punctured balloon. Lou approached Jerry, his hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," he said quietly. Jerry nodded and returned to his seat, picking up his book as though nothing had happened. The other patrons began murmuring, some offering quiet thanks, others exchanging knowing glances. For Jerry, it wasn't about being a hero. It was about maintaining dignity and teaching a lesson in respect, a lesson those young men wouldn't soon forget.